So our topic today, we are continuing on our OEM-specific ADAS training, and this time it is Honda slash Acura. We're going to talk about both since they are very closely related. And much like any other manufacturer on the market, they do use radars and cameras and ultrasonic sensors, oh my, and all the other things. They have adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, front and rear cross traffic alert, front view, rear view, 360 view camera. They also have a thing called lane watch, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a minute. And then, of course, the ultrasonic sensors for the park assist system, much like any other manufacturer that's out there. One thing that is unique to Honda, like I said, is their lane watch system. Now, this was kind of an earlier on blind spot detection sort of thing. So it was one camera in the passenger mirror looking backwards, right? So it could see in the blind spot, which is kind of good idea to start. From what I've been able to tell, they've pretty much transitioned away from that, and now they're under the between the 360 cams and the rear radars that are on most new cars nowadays. There's really don't need a dedicated camera just for that, right? But that is one thing they came out with kind of early on in their ADAS foray, I guess you could say. So that is just kind of one thing that's unique to them. Otherwise, fairly similar to a lot of the Asian manufacturers that we've seen so far, or the other Asian manufacturer being Toyota that we've seen so far. So we have a couple different example vehicles, I guess. So 2019 CRV is the first one. Highest selling model in Honda in the last 10 years. 3 radars on it, 1 for adaptive cruise control, 2 in the back for blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert. And then 4 cameras. It's got the front view, lane watch, and then the rear view. Right, so the high mount camera, and then the rear view camera, and then the lane watch camera. Right, so the front camera mounts up top, just like any other high mount camera that's up there. And I will say, in my simulator, and you'll be able to see this a little bit later, but in the simulator that I have, it won't go any further to allow me to do anything on the simulator. It's all under integrated driver support system on this vehicle. And then you would go through it. It basically it pings the car to see what it has on the car, and then it would bring back all the functions that you would need. There's also blind spot information in there as well. So there's really just 2 categories because everything is kind of under that one umbrella of the integrated driver support system. However, I did look through Shopkey to see the different methods that they use. So in this case, outside view camera, they want you to take a bunch of measurements and use some string and a plumb bob and find the center line of the car and draw some marks on the floor and measure from the center of the wheels and so on and so forth. And then they will get a target. So this is the one for the 2019 CRV. We need to remember that for a little bit later because they've changed these targets over the years. So in this case, this is the 2019. And once again, dangle 2 plumb bobs from the lower corners and make sure that they are level and plumb and all that good stuff. So that's kind of the walkthrough process. And then you would go in with the scan tool and then go into the function and turn the camera on, and it would aim it from there. The front radar has some adjustments. So one adjustment you'll make manually, and the other one you'll use using a scan tool, of course. So go in there. If the radar covers damage or crack, replace the cover and inspect the radar assembly, sub-assembly for any damages. So that's kind of here underneath the emblem. There's a little panel you got to take off to get to it. And then you make some adjustments. And in this case, you would have the this is the target that it would use for this method, and it's going to kind of align it to the bottom of the unit there, just so it's centered, and that way you know it's the correct height. Of course, if you had, say, like a true point system or something like that, it would tell you exactly where to put everything. Rear radar, same deal. In this case, we would go and look in the back, and in this case, that we're trying to get that plumb as well. Make sure it's all plumb and checked. And in this case, there really wasn't a lot to do other than manual adjustment. It just kind of turns itself on. There's really no aiming involved in that one. Then the lane watch camera, that one also doesn't really have any aiming in. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. I see the next slide on the screen. So there is some aiming involved, but it's only on one side of the vehicle because the camera is only on one side of the vehicle. So it must be aimed after one or more following procedures are done. removal or replacement, passenger side power mirror removal or replacement, door panel body repair, door position adjustment. Install the aiming target on the passenger side of the vehicle. Do the aiming in a proper place where you can attain about 14 feet between the target pattern and the vehicle from the center of the front wheel hub. You need tape measure, felt tip pen, tape, and a string. Park vehicle on level ground in a wide open area to avoid any reflection from objects that could affect the alignment procedure. And then there's your target for that. And it's got to be, like I said, about 15 feet off the middle of the front wheel. And then it would shoot it at that. And then you just walk through the procedure. 2017 Civic. It's got one radar unit in the front and that's for adaptive cruise control and collision mitigation braking. So that is helps slow the vehicle if there is an impending collision in the front. 3 cameras, front view, rear view, and lane watch, because that is the one lane watch camera too. And then 8 ultrasonic sensors, 4 in the front, 4 in the back for the park assist system. So the high mount front camera, that would be also in the integrated driver support system. Once again, like I said, on the simulator software that I have, I can't go too far in there because it actually has to be hooked up to a vehicle to see that. But you would see all the options you need. Now, remember how I said on that 2019, pay attention to what those targets look like, because in this case, we have 3 targets and they look different, right? So make sure that just because you've done a front camera on a Honda doesn't mean it's the same target, doesn't mean it's the same procedure. And that goes really for any brand. I know I mentioned it during the Toyota class as well. Even Toyota's really likes the split years, right? So they go, before this date, it's this, and after this date, it's this. So always make sure you're checking your repair information to be sure they're using the proper equipment to do this. And then also they give you this handy dandy little chart for when the camera aiming fails. So it just kind of tells you position of the 3 targets are not correct, which is prescribed distance, height, or distance between the targets. After checking the following, do it again. Multipurpose camera, not correct. You know, it'll just kind of tell you what the reason for the failure is and how to correct it. So that's helpful. Rear camera, really no aiming involved there. It just kind of sits in the underneath the deck lid over there. Front radar, that's going to be kind of in the bumper, the middle there, and that is a slightly different target. Actually, it might be very close to the same target. It looks pretty close. Must be re-aimed if the radar is removed or replaced. The ACC indicator comes on if the aiming process is not completed correctly. DTCs are indicated. Do the indicated DTCs first. If the DTCs are not repaired, you cannot complete the aiming procedure anyways. So you got to make sure there's no code. There's 2 codes that can be thrown if it's not complete or if there's an error while doing it. It'll set these codes as well. The vehicle you're aiming was involved in a collision or you suspect the alignment is out of spec, you must perform a wheel alignment prior to aiming the millimeter wave radar as well. Remember how we talked way earlier in the year about how everything draws off the center line of the vehicle? So we got to make sure that your alignment is correct, so your thrust angles are correct and all that. Lane watch camera, once again, that's in the passenger side mirror. And interestingly enough, and this is going to be the same for the CRV as well, you actually don't use the scan tool to aim the camera. So you set everything up like it described before, put it 14.8 feet back or however much, and put it where it needs to be. And then you're going to turn the vehicle on and then go into the display, the touchscreen. You're going to that button and audio power button. So those 2 buttons there, display mode and audio power. And then it's going to put you into a diagnostic menu. In that diagnostic menu, you're going to go to the functional setup and then lane watch. And then you can go into aiming start. And then when you go into aiming start, the touchscreen will do what it does, do what it needs to do, and it will aim it on that target. And then you should be good to go. All from the vehicle. Don't need a scan tool, like I said. And then as far as the parking sensors, your basic 4 in the front, 4 in the rear type situation, like most manufacturers have nowadays, ultrasonic sensors. No real setup involved, just kind of pop them in. They should be good to go. All right, now we have a 2014 Acura MDX. Like I said, we're going to do Honda and Acura. And 14 seems like it's pretty old for this. But I will tell you, they have an awful lot of equipment on this. It's actually the one that has the most stuff on it out of all of these. So 3 radars, adaptive cruise control, and blind spot monitor, rear traffic alert. 5 cameras, front view and 360 view, and then 8 ultrasonic sensors for the park assist as your standard 4 front, 4 rear. So here's your front camera again, kind of clips up in a little bracket up there. On this one, on the scan tool, for some reason, don't know what the difference is between Honda and Acura, but they have it all actually separated out, and you can actually go in there and show what's in there. So on forward collision warning and the lane departure warning, you can go on functional tests, and there's a dynamic camera aiming that's in there. And this done on the road, camera uses lane lines to calibrate the aiming while the vehicle is in motion. Aiming is necessary anytime the camera or windshield are removed or replaced. Do the service calibration on a flat and straight road that has several lanes where you can drive at least 40 kilometers an hour, 25 miles an hour. You must complete the aiming procedure within 10 minutes. Aiming procedure may fail if you take too long, if the weather is poor, such as rain, fog, or snow, or the white or yellow lines are not visible because of reflections from a wet road. And then we go through, continue the process. And like I said, that's a dynamic, so there's no targets involved in that one. Front radar, kind of sitting there in the front there, and that's for the adaptive cruise control. And there is an adjustment feature for that if we go in there. And then there's a radar aiming function. For use for doing the radar aiming, it's necessary to perform the radar aiming whenever it is subjected to removal or replacement of the radar units. Anytime I move it. Perform the vertical adjustment according to the vehicle service manual. So that is the, you're going to use adjustment screws to adjust the verticality of that. And then set the vehicle and repair the equipment. Do not set up the aiming target yet. So we're going to start the engine, turn on the main switch located on the steering wheel. If you've done that, continue to go to the horizontal adjustment, and then it would go in. And you would set up the target how it tells you to, and we saw that in the previous 2 vehicles with the triangle aiming target. Now, if there is an error or an issue, they will tell you that as well. So there's some obstacles in the aiming space. Make space by removing them or moving the vehicle. Within an aiming space, if there are some reflectors such as wall, other vehicles, or toolbox, steel frame, the aiming cannot be performed correctly. You can continue aiming until there's not any reflector in the aiming space. If the screen appears repeatedly, the location in which you're trying to perform the radar aiming is not suitable. Please find a new location with enough open space and begin the procedure again. If you want to continue, you can hit yes or no and continue from there. So you would clean up whatever needs to get moved and then hit yes, and it would allow you to proceed. Lane keep assist camera kind of works in conjunction with that forward collision camera. So the camera itself has functional tests. For this one has a dynamic camera aiming and a static camera aiming, which you could also use targets for that. And then video output tests. Rear radar, back in the rear corners of the bumpers. And to find that, we would go into blind spot information, and there would be information available in there. On this one, the simulator doesn't have that. 360 camera. Going to go into the multi-view camera system, which is what they call that. And then there's an adjustment for that. And then a camera aiming data transfer. So what this does is it's not really aiming it, so to say. It's taking, aiming the camera where it can be omitted if you replace the multi-view camera system control unit. Remove the aiming data from the old unit, right to a brand new unit. Can check the Navi screen status, shift positions, park. Do not press the multi-view camera switch. There are instructions in the scanner. Not ignition switch off while aiming. So read out data from the original ECU and then write data to a new one. So if you are going to replace it, you're going to pull this. It's basically a copy procedure, right? So it's going to copy the data out of the module, and then it's going to read the data, and then you would go back over here to write the new data, and then it would take that data that you have stored on the tool and paste it into the unit. And then as far as the parking, like I said, front and rear, center and corner sensors, no real setup involved in that. Just through on the tool. There's a couple things I have not shown you before that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. Or I haven't talked about too much. And I know there's one thing I haven't shown you at all, and there's one thing that I don't talk about. It would pull back the functional test that would apply to that particular vehicle. In this case, hooked up to a vehicle. But however, if I go to guided component tests, many vehicles, if you have a tool with a guided component test, will go in there. I can get some component information. It's going to give me my pinouts. Looks like it runs on a CAN bus. My best test location is at the unit. It's mounted behind the low center of the front grille. Sends a burst of radio waves multiple times a second that reflect back to the radar unit. Based on the time that it takes to come back, and can determine the distance. By making this measurement many times a second, it can tell if the vehicle is blind spot radar. Same deal. It's going to be left rear bumper cover, right rear bumper cover. Going to work in the same way. If it fails to operate, make sure that the radar unit is not blocked off. Let's see, collision mitigating braking system wave radar unit. So that's going to be the same one in the front, right? So collision mitigation braking system can assist you when there's a possibility of your vehicle colliding with a vehicle or when a pedestrian is detected in front of the vehicle. CMBS is designed to alert you when potential collision is determined. Also, it can reduce your vehicle speed to help minimize collision severity when a collision is deemed unavoidable. So it's going to slow you down, but it's not going to stop you in time necessarily. And that'd be the same radar unit. And then lane departure warning system camera. We got some information on that. That's going to be CAN as well. Does not alert the driver when there's no lane markers, foggy, snow-covered road, or mud. The camera view is blocked if the camera temperature gets too hot. It will give you a message in the center display telling you. Okay, and then warning systems, the switches, adaptive cruise control module itself, like the module, all the pinouts and stuff. So all of that information is readily available on the tool. Let's go into shop key as well and just take a look at a couple things. So in shop key, we can go into the ADAS button there, and it's got all the different things here. So collision avoidance, blind spot sensors, forward-looking radar sensor. So I can go in there. And then, there's some TSBs on it, on the radar. Aiming the millimeter wave radar, do the mechanical vertical aiming first. It's going to give you a little tech tip that says you need to aim it. So just use a little, bubble level. There we go. Bubble level or spirit level, depending on where you're at. Remove and replace is going to give you those procedures as well. So this is kind of a fancy alignment tool. And you're going to go in there, and there's going to be a whole bracket assembly for that. And then there's the adjustments. Make sure you do the adjustments. Bubble level there. Make sure it's vertically level. And then horizontally level with the scan tool. It's going to give you all your measurements. Here's how to get to it. Here's how to aim it. And you're actually going to go in the scan tool and look at it. And you're going to move it until it's done. Easy enough. Also in here, we should have the outside view camera, which would be the lane watch. Lane watch camera right there. And then to aim it, like I said, it's a whole procedure. Got a rack, got a big old target. Got to put it way back here. And then use it in the use the radio to do so. So there's hold the buttons, go through, hit the button, and then it will do the aiming procedure. But you need to make sure you set up the targets first. All right, that's the CRV. Let's go to the Civic. Civic's going to be the same type of situation where the simulator doesn't go very far. Integrated driver support system. We said, codes and data. Functional tests come on when you hook up to a car, and then parking is not supported on this simulator either. Got a component test. Let's see. I actually didn't check this one. Yep, driver aids and ADAS. There we go. So lane watch system camera. A lot of different things there. Turn signal switch, camera center display. Lane watch switch is activated, camera turns on. The center display is the right side blind spot by 80 degrees, where the regular mirror only shows you 20 degrees. The camera is replaced and needs to be aimed. It requires a special dealer tool, which would be the target. DC voltage tests, looking for 5 volts. All the other stuff's going to be pretty much the same because they use pretty much the same system up until a lot more recently. And then driver assist ADAS. So let's say, collision avoidance system. There we go. Let's do that. So we have remove and replace for that. And that's for the switch only. Collision mitigating braking system switch is what that marks down to. And then we have the Acura right there. That does have a lot of stuff on the scanner that we can go into. And this is where I'm going to show you something I have not shown you before. And I don't know why I have not shown this to you before. Maybe a long time ago, years ago, I might have shown this when this first came out. But up on the top right here, you can see it says, actually, no, you can't because my camera's in the way. But up behind my head here on the top right of the screen, there is a grayed out button that says ADAS report. Right now, I can't go in and it's grayed out because I haven't done an actual calibration. So when you go in and do a calibration, it will then allow you to access this report. So I'm going to go in on the lane keep assist camera. I'm going to go into functional tests, and I'm going to do a static camera aiming. Okay. So it needs to do it after the camera's replaced or reassembled. Shift to park, start the engine, start parking brake, ensure the headlights and DRLs are off, ensure the vehicle is not facing direct sunlight. And then I'll just say wrong conditions, right? Because it's in a simulator. So then I think, though, because the fact that I actually went in there, yeah. So the fact that I actually went in there triggers the ADAS report. So on a Zeus Plus, Veris Edge, it will be up on this screen. It'll be on the main menu on the top right-hand side of the screen. On all the other tools, it actually shows up when you exit it. It pops up on the screen, and you have to save it in order for it to either upload or print. So if I open this up, you can see I have just this recalibration report. Now, I will also have to hit the save button, which is going to be up behind my head as well. That will save it to the tool and also upload it to the cloud. So if I come down here, you're going to see I have an ADAS report. You can see it's already uploaded. And then I'll just open it in PDF. And there it is. So here's my ADAS calibration report. It's going to give whatever specifics on the vehicle. Yeah, whatever. We can set up that later. So to put the vehicle particulars in there, odometer, license, you would have to, of course, get that, plug that in. It's going to date and timestamp it. And it's going to tell you what test it was. So you can also check off as a static, dynamic, or static and dynamic. And then your input values, if there are any input values needed, in this case, there wouldn't be. On, say, like a Toyota where you got to put in the millimeters and stuff, it's in there. And then the results as to whether or not it passed. And in this case, it was user canceled because I backed out of it because it wouldn't let me proceed. Any equipment used and additional notes, overall results, whether it was a pass or fail. Any information about that, technician, name and signature, if there's any certifications and dates. So this is a lot of this is mandated over in Europe. All right, so that's one of the reasons it's in here because it's not mandated in North America at the moment. But for future use, may be necessary. Maybe your insurance company wants additional documentation. That is available on any ADAS calibration that you do on the tool. And like I said, I don't know why I haven't talked about it yet this year, considering all the ADAS talk I've been doing. But yeah, that is available for you as well. So with that, that is Honda and Acura. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about next week. And next week is going to be hybrid and EV diagnosis and repair. Haven't talked a lot about hybrid and EV vehicles for a couple of years, so we're going to talk about it again next week. So we're going to just talk about the differences, the similarities between an EV and a hybrid, differences between EVs and hybrids, a couple different tests that we can do on them, like battery health, state of health tests, and that sort of thing. So please join me again next week, every Tuesday, 6 and 9 Eastern. Go to snapon.com/OT if you want to join me on Zoom. Otherwise, the 6 p.m. class goes live to YouTube, youtube.com/Snap-on Diagnostics, and the 9 p.m. Eastern class goes to our Snap-on Diagnostics product and training page. They changed the name on me, so I don't remember what the short URL is anymore. But if you scan that QR code, that'll bring you to the YouTube channel and subscribe you. If you want to see any of the other topics in this series, anywhere from intro to ADAS through scanner versus scope diagnostics and this class. So this is class 113. They're all readily available for you for free on the YouTube channel. There is a playlist for live training. Once again, scan that QR code to get you there. They're all about half hour, 40 minutes long, kind of depending on topic and time and such. But yeah, check them out. Also, do we have your email address? If we do not have your email address, you may be missing out on some good information on diagnostics. So things like tech focused articles, sure track blogs, quick tips, new product releases. Hey, new product just released in North America, by the way, called the Gen 3 Triton. You can go to our YouTube channel and check it out. But you would have gotten an email about it this week too, to let you know. Also, they send out my schedule periodically for what classes I'm doing. So you scan that QR code, it'll send you to the page to fill in your particulars, and you can start getting those emails. Time for questions. I will get to those in a second, but I want to make sure that I mention my buddy Keith, who also does free diagnostics training. He does it on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and it is on a specific product. So Zeus Plus is going to be, or Zeus and Zeus Plus will be on Wednesday, and then Thursdays on Triton and Apollo tools. So he walks you from everything from soup to nuts, goes through scanner functions, scope functions, about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes long. Well worth your time if you want to learn more about your tool. So let's get to questions. I got a couple on Zoom. If you do have a question on Zoom and you weren't here at the beginning, just make sure you find the little Q&A button. Let's see. Jay says, good class. Thank you. Claude says, explain the importance of the targets, print off copier or OEM. So some OEMs, and I think it's really only Toyota, has printable targets, and that's only for certain ones. And it is important that they're well lit. And I would say the quality of some of the inkjet printers are out there, you might get some banding, so that would probably throw it off as well. So I would use OEM or at least OEM quality targets. There are some other manufacturers out there that actually use like a 4K TV screen. Not sure how well that'll work. Never really tried it in practice. I've seen it out in the wild, but not really sure how that works in practice. I know OEM targets or any of the targets that we make for the TruePoint and the Easy ADAS system are to OEM standards. We build them ourselves in Arkansas, but they are made to the OEM standards, quality standards, all that good stuff. And then Claude also asked, what's the accuracy expected for these vehicles? So I'm guessing talking about the targets, right? So yeah, so Claude, if you use the TruePoint, then yeah, it's going to be OEM quality. You know, we build them, we make them in Conway, Arkansas, but they are to the OEM specifications, whatever they are. Is there any scan tools training for ProLink? Not the ProLink Plus, not yet. We did have those multi-modules that we had for the Edge, but I know they're working on for the ProLink Plus. They're working on modules for that. So not sure when those will come out, but hey, if you got an email address from us, very well may get that email. All right, let's go over to YouTube. Nick's saying hello from the UK. The Winton is saying hello, and Soren Gafour, I believe is how you pronounce that, and they're from Birmingham, UK. So welcome in. That's really the only city in UK I've spent any appreciable amount of time in, and it's a nice little city. It was mainly just right around the expo center there, but yeah, they drove me around a little bit. It's pretty nice. I like how it has light rail all easily available. It's pretty nice. So yeah, beautiful little city. Let's see. Nick loves his Snap-on Zeus and does the front door, back door testing. Loves using his oscilloscope on the Zeus. Let's see. Yeah, and he says, make sure your battery terminals are tight because that will throw a code as well. It very well could, and I'm guessing maybe you might have run into that today. So yeah, make sure your battery terminals are tight and not corroded, and you'll have a much easier diagnosis time. All right, with that seems to be the questions. So thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with me. Hopefully you'll be able to join me next week for our hybrid and EV class. With that, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. Have a nice night and take care.